Hello, and welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
On this show, we talk about all things creepy and, like the name says, mysteries. We're going to talk about true crime. We're going to talk about cryptids, the paranormal sometimes, all sorts of good stuff. So, if it catches our attention, we're going to talk about it. And just a warning, there may be language, there may be descriptions of gore, especially if we're talking about a serial killer or something like that. So we make no promises that we are safe for work or for children.
Yeah, I have a potty mouth.
Who doesn't?
So,
Sailors.
right?
Sailors over here.
Oh my
So,
God.
why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, my name is MB Partlow, and I am a former circus performer, but I don't like to talk about it. I work part-time in a retail environment, which I have found extremely interesting. I didn't think I would like it, but I really do. And I write. Not a lot lately, but I do write. God damn it, that book is going to come out if it kills me, which it might. I tend to write urban fantasy and mystery, and I tend to read fucking everything.
Yes, and I am Shannon Lawrence. I'm primarily a horror author, primarily short stories, although I'm shopping a urban fantasy right now. But I don't know. I didn't even think about what I was going to say about myself again.
Do you have a new book coming out?
I do have a new book coming out. In fact, it'll be out by the time this comes out, because it comes out this Wednesday, or this Friday, sorry, on my birthday, November 20th, and it's Happy Gula Days. And this will be episode 5. And episode 6, I'm going to be talking about something that I wrote about in one of the stories.
Yay.
But Happy Gula Days is a holiday horror collection of short stories.
I'm excited
And
for
not
it.
just Christmas, which everybody keeps putting out Christmas horror. A whole book
It's
of it.
a big thing to put out a collection of Christmas shorts, whether it's crime writers or romance writers or
I didn't want to just do Christmas. I wanted other things.
There are a lot of holidays this month. Whatever, I don't know what day it is anymore.
I don't either. Okay.
I'm not kidding when I tell you that last week, every single day, I woke up and like the very first thought I had was, now what day is this? Yeah.
I know, that's why I cross off the days on the calendar so that I can look at the calendar and go, oh, today is this day. I used to keep a really good accounting in my head. I knew what was coming.
Yeah.
I knew like my appointments for months out. Mm-hmm. What day they were so that I could schedule stuff. Actually, that started breaking after I had kids. But the pandemic has finished it off.
When I lived in Virginia Beach, I could keep my work schedule, all my friends' work schedules, when they were going on vacation, whoever I was dating.
I know, now I'm like, did you go to a place? You said you were going to a place. Did you did you do the thing and go to the place?
Yep. Now it's just like the stuff with the thing.
Oh, speaking of which, I went to New Orleans.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I want to know everything you ate.
Okay, I'm gonna say. So I was all excited to go out there and have some yummy food, and I think by the third day I was like, I just want a green salad or a green bean or I was dying by the end.
The first time I went to New Orleans, which Joe and I went on our honeymoon, it took me about 6 days, but I got there. I looked at him and I said, I'd like just a plain bagel and maybe some fruit.
Oh, the fruit. Oh my gosh, yes. I tried to add that. So we went to breakfast at this neat little French place, and I had French toast, which is kind of a no-no because I'm not supposed to have egg whites, but I was like, whatever, they're cooked. I'm going to do it. I'm on vacation. And so I ordered fruit with it, and I was kind of disappointed because, I don't know, I thought they'd have fresher fruit than we do here in Colorado.
Being
but they didn't.
In a southern climate, they should. Thing 2 goes to school in Little Rock, Arkansas, and she's like she's on the meal plan, and she's like, canned pears.
Oh, no.
I mean, Arkansas, you can spit on the ground and a fruit tree will grow.
Right.
And a tomato plant.
I don't understand
and some zucchini. But the college, the dining halls, it's all canned. It's all
cheap.
Yes, it's all because they don't do it. Almost nobody does at colleges does it in-house anymore. It's all the big. I don't want to blame Sodexo. That's just
like
the
public school suppliers and hospitals.
It's just that's the only one I can remember the name of off the top of my head.
Eek. Well, so we went to Acme Oyster House, and
did you have raw oysters?
I didn't. because I'm allergic to them, so
Oh, okay.
I didn't do it.
That's okay.
But I had, what did I have there? Because I had like soup, because that was that was the second or third day, and so I was like, everywhere had freaking po' boys, and I was like, I'm done with po' boys. I would just like an option for another food, please. So I had some sort. I think it was like a crab soup, or
Probably
no,
a
it was
bisque
a
or
crab
gumbo.
and corn bisque.
Yum.
Yes, and I had hush puppies there, which, oh my god, I miss hush puppies from when I lived in Maryland
Yes.
so much. I mean, I can get them at the Front Range Barbecue downtown, right? But I don't go there all the time, and they're still not quite the same. And they were denser
Yes.
in New Orleans, so we went to Cafe Du Monde. By the way, I was surprised how many places were cash only down there.
Really?
Which is the complete opposite of here, where they haven't been able to get change from banks, right? There was
Right.
the change shortage. So we were not at all prepared to need cash everywhere we went.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. The restaurants we were mostly okay with, but anything else was cash, like to do a tour, because we went to the pharmacy museum.
Ooh, I heard about that, but
Yeah.
I didn't visit it.
Oh, it was fun because it had, all the old cures. I took a bunch of pictures of these terrible
Yes.
things they were doing, of the, what was it, lead baby nipples that they were just sucking straight lead off of there and stuff like that. And then we went to I think it's the murder museum, or the Museum of Death.
Ooh.
Yeah, and there was something filming right next door to it. So we walked past, there's all these trucks, and they're offloading all this material, and there's this guy with a monitor set up and the headphones on and everything, and we just walked past him. And then we go in there, and they said they thought they were filming, the person in the museum said, well, they thought they were filming something that's supposed to hopefully lead to a Twilight TV show. And I was like, eh.
And why would it be set in New Orleans?
I don't know, but the thing is, by the time we left the museum, they had packed up. That's how fast. They filmed one thing there.
Maybe it was just it's not going to be set there. It's just going to...
Yeah, and it was in a courtyard. Like, there's something we noticed in New Orleans as we're walking down. You go between the buildings, and then there'd be this alley kind of walkway back, and there'd be this lovely, lush courtyard, and somebody, and they were all gated off, so you couldn't go in there.
Yep.
And then we did actually get to go to the one behind the pharmacy museum that belonged to them.
Oh.
So, super excited, because my sister was like, I want to go into one of the courtyards. Couldn't. We went and looked at the LaLaurie Mansion, which you can't go into. They don't do tours in there, but we walked at that. And then we went to Marie Laveau's House of Voodoo.
Yeah. And you went to a cemetery, didn't you?
No, they were locked. They were all gated, and you had to... Well, you saved it for the last day, because it was just going to be something we could walk through while we relaxed, because we weren't flying out until 6. Or no, that's when we were landing. We weren't flying out till 4. Nope. They're all gated up. There were chains on them all, and
wow.
There was one had a note that you could only come in with tour guides. The other one said online they were still open. They all shut down for COVID. And I'm like, why? We're not going to give the dead people COVID. Stop it. Everything else is open.
Yeah.
Why
The
can't we go
bars
to
are
the
open.
outdoor place that we can walk? So whatever. But I was pretty disappointed with that, because honestly, I have no desire to go back there ever again. What I discovered is New Orleans is not for me. I didn't like the noise. I didn't like... Bourbon Street was immensely overwhelming for somebody with sensory issues.
How did it smell?
Fine. Yeah.
Cooler weather.
Yeah. Even though it was after less than a week after a hurricane went through.
I having gone in warmer weather, I'm just like, whoa, that's kind of intense.
Okay. Yeah, it was, we walked along the Mississippi. I told him at the beginning, I was like, I just need to see the Mississippi. I want to walk up to it and see the Mississippi.
You posted a picture, and I'm like, I've been right there. It was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
wherever you posted that picture, I was like, yeah, I know that spot.
But it didn't, but in my head, the Mississippi is something you learn about as a kid, right?
Yes.
And it's
Oh
this
my God,
vast,
yes.
huge river.
Yes.
And so when I got to it and it didn't really look much wider than the one in Savannah, I was like, huh, this is underwhelming. But it was lovely. But yeah, well, so I've seen the Mississippi, and I can...
You could cross that off your...
It was right off my bucket list. And I went to New Orleans, which I've wanted to do forever. But yeah, so I had... I always did the shrimp. I did a shrimp po' boy. Yeah. I did... What else? There was something else that was a big deal.
All the
French
all
food.
the seafood is so fresh.
Oh gosh, yes. So that's what I went for. And then when I had lost my mind and I said, I need something else. Oh, so we found this. That's what I was thinking of. Went to a place called Daisy Dukes. total like hole in the wall diner, open 24 hours. That's why we went there, because we didn't get to the place we were renting until 10:30 p.m. and everything was closed, especially during COVID. Everything closed early. So we went there 2 nights in a row because we ate too late. Anyway, they had alligator sausage.
Yeah.
That's where I had my first shrimp po' boy. Oh, so good. They had, I had fried green tomatoes there. I had gumbo, because you got a little dish of gumbo with whatever. So I did like half of a po' boy and gumbo. Super good. We actually really liked it there. And nobody recommended that. Nobody had mentioned it. But we really liked the little hole in the wall, and it was good service. And I had sweet tea a couple places. But
Oh, that must have made you happy.
yes. Because I only did dessert was the one time with the beignets. But anyway, we found a little place called Cleo's. My sister found it looking on the map because we were hungry, again, late at night. And this place was open, I don't remember if it was 24 hours or just really late. And we had walked past it every day. It was called Cleo's, I think. And it advertised itself as halal Mediterranean.
Oh.
So I got to have chicken shawarma.
Nice.
And I got a green salad, and I was like, yeah, whatever. It'll probably be some lettuce.
Iceberg.
Oh, it was so good. It was lettuce and freshly sliced cucumber and radish and carrot. And I was like, or not radish, but cabbage. And
Nice.
then I ordered, as the side, I could order hummus. And then I got pita bread with that. And then just as another side, they gave me a bunch of freshly sliced cucumber. And I was like, you guys just saved my life.
And your colon.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we did a swamp tour, and that was awesome.
Yeah, that I was jealous of.
Yeah, and the thing is, he said 2 more weeks. The guide said 2 more weeks, and we wouldn't have seen any alligators because they're going under to hibernate for the winter. So we only saw a few. Normally there would have been a ton out there.
I was gonna say, I thought you saw plenty.
I loved the swamp pandas. I have a special fondness for raccoons.
Yes.
And they were everywhere, and he threw them marshmallows. I was at first, I was like, that's probably a no-no. And then I was all, in cities they eat our trash. So whatever, they got some fucking marshmallows. Awesome. But they were so cute. And they would growl at each other if one came after another one's marshmallow. But at one point we pulled into this little area, and, we saw 2, and that's why he pulled in. And all of a sudden from the trees, 8 more raccoons came down.
Did you not flash on squirrels?
Right? They were basically squirrels there. I didn't see any squirrels.
Did you see the thing David posted on his Facebook page? Or maybe Brian posted about
David Slayton.
David Slayton, famous author. I got to write that down. We referenced David. It was something about groundhogs. This guy is a gardener, and something was eating his vegetables. So he finally he kept doing all this stuff to his garden and doing stuff to the fence, and something kept getting in, and he was like, so they saw squirrels, but they were like, it's too much for a squirrel. So they finally put out motion sensor cameras, and they got all this great footage of this fucking fat groundhog who would come and eat it, and it's so close to the camera, you can hear it,
Oh my God.
like eating a carrot, eating an apple, and then, what he wound up doing, he built a second garden for the groundhogs.
Oh, jeez.
He put a little wooden picnic table.
Okay, I have to go look for this later.
They named the groundhog. Then there's a slightly smaller one that they figure is the wife. Then there was Junior. And it's just like, and they were like, they do not share their food.
No.
Not at all. It was really, really cute.
Survival of the fittest. But I didn't.
Survival of the fattest. You're all in trouble.
Groundhog. That's right. So, no, I didn't. But, so we had to put chicken wire under our garden here because the rabbits will burrow up underneath the gardens. So, chicken wire underneath and a cloche over top. And now we have a greenhouse, but...
yes.
The squirrels were always in there. I just remember I have this picture of a rabbit just got in. The cloche got left open a little bit, and that little bastard just burrowed straight into the middle of my zucchini.
Oh.
Fine.
My mom used to fight deer. Because she'd go out and they'd eat all the green beans. I mean, they would just snap the beans right off. And she's like, my mother did not swear, but if she did, she would call them little fuckers.
Yeah.
And she would go to every length. She would put blood meal on the, mix it with water and spray it on the leaves to deter and people would put bobcat urine around their garden. And
so when we put out the Christmas lights, they'll chew on our wires out front.
What do you use?
We don't want a electrocuted deer.
No.
Well, you can get all sorts of predator urine around here, like coyote, mountain lion, bobcat. So put that on there.
What you doing, Jeff? Just spraying some mountain lion urine.
Oh yeah, he comes in and he's like, take a shower. Oh yeah, we're well aware of all that.
Oh yes.
But they don't get into my backyard. That's where my garden is, so it's all good. And out at the cabin, it's fair game. Anything wants to go after that's outside of my house. As long as it's not the damn birds pecking into my house.
Yes.
And letting mice in and stuff like that, then we're all good.
Yes.
What have you been watching, reading? Any good stuff?
Yes. So I watched a movie that it was one of those in between. So I've been rewatching Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay, yeah.
Because
comfort watch.
It's a comfort watch. In between 2 episodes, there was an ad for this movie called Get Duked.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Have you actually watched the movie?
Is it the one with the kids?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought it was hilarious.
Uh-huh.
And it has the best callback at the end of the movie from the beginning of the movie. And that's all I can say because I don't want to spoil it. I watched it because Eddie Izzard was in it.
Yeah.
And I love him.
So is it, all right, remind me, is this the one where it's like 3 boys that are troublemakers get taken out to do this?
And one boy is the real brown noser.
Yeah,
He's doing this, put it on his resume. And it's the Duke of Edinburgh challenge. Yeah. So that was on, oh God, it must have been on
Amazon, I thought.
Yeah, I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
So I highly recommend Get Duked.
Okay, yeah, I enjoyed that one too. And it's is it British? What was it? Scottish?
It's in the Scottish Highlands.
Okay.
But I'm not sure where the kids came from. If they came from, because the Scottish Highlands aren't that far from. Okay, for us in the U.S., the Scottish Highlands aren't that far from England, so it's
it's not like California to Pennsylvania.
No, not at all. So what have you watched?
TV show I finally started watching, Evil, which people recommended to me forever, but I don't have cable.
Oh, so what do you think of it?
Oh, I love it. So the actor, what's his name? It's Mike Cole or Mike Colton. I'm terrible about remembering names now. I can still tell you.
Which character?
He played Luke Cage. So I enjoy looking at him. But
the one who plays the priest or the almost
he's
priest,
the priest,
or
yeah.
the sort of priest?
Yeah.
Except
he's on his way.
He's got a lot of naughty thoughts.
He has a lot of naughty thoughts, and he has some background, and he has some struggles, which is good. I mean, he's a really well fleshed out character.
Are you through it? Have you watched all of it?
No, and I'm still in season 1, but I think I'm near the end. He's getting his ass handed to him right now, is all I know. There's been 3 episodes in a row where he has just gotten abused horribly. Yes. So I've been enjoying that.
I liked that.
All about. I love that there's this mix. Is it? It's 3 experts, and one of them's looking to see, is there a natural explanation for this? Is there asbestos in the building?
The therapist. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's
the tech guy.
Yes.
Ben the Magnificent. And as the girls call him. And then there's the psychologist looking to see, is there a psychological aspect to this?
Yes.
And then, of course, you have your priest in training who's looking to see if there's a demonic or religious
supernatural
explanation.
What I like is they're not all supernatural.
They're not all, and there's some that you have to wonder,
Yes.
Well, was it? Who was this, right?
And the bad guy,
I hate him so much.
Right? But he plays that so well.
And I kind of want to smack Christine Lottie around, too.
I was just going to say the mom. Yes. She needs to be... yuck.
I know.
Yes.
Just
I'm like,
her.
I am sorry. That is not how you treat your kids.
No, something she does with the grandchild. I could actually do without that whole frustrating storyline. I mean, I get it. It's on the side, and he's doing all these evil things, but they're these tiny, minute little evil things trying to lead to like a shooting by an incel and stuff like that. And I'm just like, stop it! Go back to the rest of the show. I hate him. But I love her confidence, the psychologist or psychiatrist, I can't remember, her confidence in confronting him and her learning stuff about him. So that person.
Yes, she is a very interesting character.
They're excellent characters.
Yeah, and she has 4 daughters. It's kind of like Little Women in her house.
I want to know how they get those little girls to so perfectly talk over each other, like how much time they had to spend together ahead of time, getting to know each other and stuff like that, you know.
They do it really well.
They seem like a family of girls.
Yes.
All close. All right, so books?
Books I read, let me see. Oh, so my book group read a book called Breathe, A Letter to My Sons by Imani Perry. Mm-hmm. And that is what it is. She's a scholar, and apparently her editor came to her, and because she's always written letters to her sons. Like when she's going away, she leaves them a letter. Parts of it were very, very good, but she's obviously coming at it from a nonfiction background. Okay. So the things that you look for in fiction were not always there. Like the common thread pulling you forward from the opening to the ending. I mean, there were some pieces that were just, some parts of it, and it's a very short book, some parts that were just so beautifully written about fitting in. And then there was a whole piece she wrote on, she wanted her sons to recognize the privilege that they were born into. Yeah. Because she's like, yes, you are my black sons and you have all these issues just because of the color of your skin, but recognize that your mother was an educated woman and your grandparents had all this education and were leaders. And so she's like, not everybody is born to that situation. So that was pretty good.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
And what have you been reading?
Puzzling Ink by Becky Clark, because we have book group this week. Did you finish it?
I was a beta reader.
Oh, that's right. So you don't have to. Oh, okay.
I'm writing it down though, so I can.
It's cute so far. So I'll be done in time for a book group, which is good.
Need to remember that that's this week. It is on my calendar. I want to know, do you have, because I definitely do you have comfort reads? Do you have things that you go back and reread, like when life is really stressful?
No, because I tend to then phase out on a movie instead. But I do have things that I've read that I'll read over and over, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is definitely not a comfort read, but it's so beautifully written. Mm-hmm. Was it Ken Casey? Yes. I go back to it over and over again. And I discovered that I may be a secret, a secret killer, like sniper or something like that, because my Catcher in the Rye is apparently Lord of the Flies, because when I sorted out my bookshelves, I found 4 different copies of Lord of the Flies that I'd gotten, and I don't remember buying them, and they're all different versions of the cover, and so I was like, well, it's like Mel Gibson. I'm going to go conspiracy theory. Apparently, I buy one of those repeatedly, and I've never
read that.
Really?
I don't know how I missed it. So if you want to lend me a copy,
right?
Since you have
I don't know. I don't think I can spare it. Oh. I'd actually seen the movie with Balthazar Getty before in the middle of the night at some point before. So then when they told me to read it, I was like, "Yay!" for school, and then I read it, and then I've read it a couple more times. Yeah.
I mean, I've read a lot.
Again, not a comfort read.
No, I've read a lot of the dreadful things that you're forced to read in high school, but that I just somehow missed that one.
I see. I typically liked them. So I liked A Separate Piece, for example, that we had to read. But here's the thing. I realized that I totally never read Moby Dick because I'd heard so much about it that I was able to answer all the test questions without having read it.
Right.
And the same thing, I don't think I ever read Animal Farm. George Orwell's Animal Farm, and so I want to because it seems pertinent right now, and I should at some point read Moby Dick, but
I'm not going to press you to read that one.
No, but there were certain things I just skipped.
What was the other one you just mentioned?
A Separate Piece?
No, before that, when you were talking about Lord of the Flies, you said it's your Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye, because in Conspiracy Theory, the movie with Mel Gibson and Julia Roberts.
Okay, Catcher in the Rye. Mm-hmm. Do you love it?
I actually haven't read it.
Oh.
It's just that in the movie, he will buy Catcher in the Rye every time he sees it. And he doesn't know why. It's compulsion.
It just really irritated me.
Yeah?
I was like, I don't know.
I haven't read Of Mice and Men either, and I feel like I should read that.
Yeah.
But again, I've heard of it so many times. Have you watched any movies lately?
We did that. Get Duped.
Oh, and I didn't say a movie.
You didn't.
You know what? I didn't write this one down, but I finally watched the movie Becky. Kevin James,
How
the
was
comedian,
it?
is the bad guy, so I kept avoiding.
Yeah, I wanted to see it because I wanted to see him play a bad guy.
It's actually, I didn't want to, but he did a good job. It was good. The little girl, first of all, is a bit of a sociopath to begin with.
Right.
But, so my husband and I are watching this, and she pulls on this little animal hat. It's like a fox or something. It has the ears, and she always settles it on, and then she's just butchering these bad guys, right? She's kicking their asses. And I turned to my husband, and I was like, yep, our daughter would wear her little pink kitty cat hat that she has, and she would totally do this to all these people. She would just, her tiny little body be running around with her little pink kitty cat hat, and she would just kill them all. And he was like, Jesus, but you're right.
I like that.
And so she totally reminded me of my daughter.
Did your daughter
But not
see
in
the
that
movie?
bad way, by the way. She's not even an icky teenager.
No. Oh my God. But yeah, I also want to see Freaky.
That's freaky.
Freaky is the new Vince Vaughn movie where so in the beginning of the movie, Vince Vaughn is a serial killer and he's going after this teenage girl, but there's something buried under the football field and they switch his personality.
Oh my God, it's Freaky Friday
with a serial killer.
How have I not heard of
It's
this?
the guy. It's the same people who made Happy Death Day, right?
You know what
are
I'm
so
waiting
excited.
for? And
What?
now it finally hit Redbox, so I'm going to get it this week. Antebellum. What
the hell is that?
it's a horror film, and I really can't even describe it from the previews. It goes back to, like, slavery.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know it. It's been so long because it was one of those, you can buy this ahead of time or rent it ahead of time for the $20 or whatever online. And then we weren't doing that. We did that with 2 movies, I think, at the very beginning. The Hunt and...
I haven't seen that. Is that...
Oh, that one's really good.
Okay.
And politically, it spears everybody. Just so you know, it's not... I thought it would lean super liberal or something, but it spears everybody. Because it's making fun of the extremists. I mean... Good. So, anyway, yeah. And then the Suicide Squad follow-up, I saw that way. But, yeah, so I didn't. So I kept waiting, and it finally came out on Redbox this week. So I'll actually be able to tell you what it's about once I rent it and get to watch it, which may not be this week because I have to get some final stuff done with the book, and I have a class that I'm finishing that was the 4 credit, and I have to get the next podcast episode ready by Wednesday. So, yeah.
Well, shall we dive into... who's going first? Am I going first or are you going first?
I don't remember. I always forget the order.
Mine is probably shorter than yours this time.
Okay. Is yours positive? Okay. So how negative or positive is yours? Because mine's pretty depressing. So if we want to hint on a high note...
Okay, then you go first. Mine isn't like super cheerful, but it's not super depressing. So you start. So we're still doing places we've lived at this point.
Yes, and this is my last places I've lived.
Okay.
Because so this is California. It's actually where I was born, but I only lived there for 7 months of my life, and then I moved to Oregon. I thought about doing Disneyland Ghosts because I have a tie there, because my uncle used to work there as a buyer.
Oh.
Whatever.
They must be very happy ghosts.
Probably, yeah. I don't think any of them are evil. And then there's a creature called the Billy Whack that I might do in the future because I hadn't heard of it, and it's this great conspiracy theory mixed with a cryptid tale, which is kind of fun, like a government war conspiracy.
It sounds like a nickname for a penis.
Yeah, the Billy Whack.
So I'm just gonna put that out there.
Bring on the Billy Whack. So
here I am taking it down a level.
Let's just take this right down into the mud.
Let's take it right. I just started in the gutter, so I've got nowhere to go but up.
But okay, so recently I decided to do the Golden State Killer,
right?
Because there's been, first of all, serial killer that was caught in an interesting way. Second of all, let me just say his name, Joseph DeAngelo, also known as the Golden State Killer. Also known as the original Night Stalker, that's the big one. Also known as the East Area Rapist. Also known as the Visalia Ransacker. Also known as the Diamond Knot Killer. Also known as, suspected, the Cordova Cat Burglar. He'd been practicing quite a long time.
What was the V one? The
Visalia Ransacker. Yeah.
Okay, the police and or press in that town,
usually the press,
they got to start over because the Visalia Ransacker.
Oh, you'll see why it's Ransacker though. It actually makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
My sources, KCRA 3 News, Reason Magazine, Wikipedia, because it's always a good bouncing off point.
Yep.
CBS Sacramento, True Crime Buzz on Oxygen.com, Crime Scene Database, and MSN News. So, and of course there could have been a ton of other, but at that point everything was repeating. So
yes.
I got the data I needed and wanted. Yeah, I wanted to cover him because it's really fascinating how he was caught. And because a lot of people don't realize, because they've just been calling him the Golden State Killer, that he was the original Night Stalker. And the original Night Stalker has been caught. And, you know, he was right there with the Zodiac for people that people just never thought would be caught. So, it starts in 1973 with a man who was breaking into homes. He would just go through their belongings. He would throw the women's underwear around the room. He would steal petty objects. Never anything big. He actually would leave cash sitting there, right? And other valuables. But he would take things like collector's coins, blue chip stamps, which I meant to look up what the hell that was because they kept mentioning them.
Got to be like green stamps.
They must be something. Coins from piggy banks. He would empty out a kid's piggy bank. Or if there was a jar of coins, he would take those. He would steal one earring out of a pair, one cufflink out of a pair.
Oh, that would really
Isn't that annoying? And you probably wouldn't even discover that until later. So it was just these little things. He was keeping trophies.
Yeah.
He left behind the valuables. He just wanted to inconvenience people. So he was known to stack bottles or breakable dishware against doors or balance like a glass on a knob so that if somebody were to come into the house, he'd be alerted. This was his thing, his MO. They'd come in and they'd break their crockery or whatever because it was leaning against the door or something like that.
Also would piss me off.
Right? He would commit multiple break-ins a day, and on November 30th, 1974, he did 12 burglaries on that one day in this area.
I looked it up, and Blue Chip were a competitor of SNH green stamps.
So the green, I remember the green stamp. Okay, yeah. Makes sense. So anyway, he ended up getting named the Visalia because that's the area he was in. Ransacker.
Sure. Okay.
Because he just literally was going in and ransacking. He only committed one murder during his ransacker years. On September 11th, 1975, he broke into the home of Claude Snelling. Somebody had previously tried to get into the daughter's bedroom, tried to break through the window.
Oh.
So, and there's a lot of stories like that when you're going through where he had been there before. And he would try things out ahead of time. Anyway, it was about 2 a.m. and he hears noise and he wakes up. And his daughter, we're going to go to his daughter's viewpoint now because she actually spoke at the hearing. So his daughter later reported she had been awakened by someone climbing into her bed. She thought it was one of her little brothers, right? And then he started talking, whispering to her in this little creepy, growly voice. And so she knew it wasn't. He said, "You're going to come with me or I will stab you and kill you." So he gets her up out of bed. They walk out of the house. The father hears the noise and wakes up. And I don't know if there's a mom there. Usually the moms wake up first, and it's even said in his other crimes, usually the woman would wake up first. We're just lighter sleepers a lot of the time. Some of us, not MBs.
I was going to say Joe is the lighter sleeper between us, so.
But she's out there. They've gotten out to the car park, and she sees her dad coming through the kitchen. Right? And he was a university professor. Okay. And anyway, she said her dad roared and just ran at the guy. And so the guy who's taken her, he pushes her down to the ground, shoots her dad multiple times, twice. So she's on the ground and she curls into a fetal position, and she thought she was going to die. This is it. He's going to shoot me now too.
Yeah.
But instead, he starts kicking her and hitting her with the gun and just screaming, just frustrated and mad, and then he takes off. So she lives. Her dad was able to get inside to the bed. So there was a mom to where his wife was, and then he died, sadly. So that was his first murder. That is known of. December 12th, 1975, since he had started taunting the news and stuff like that and saying where he'd be to test people, he broke into a house where a detective was hiding in the garage, staking out, because I assume that, like with other cases, somebody had tried to mess with the house before. He confronted the ransacker. Ransacker ripped off his mask, shrieked, shot blindly at the cop, hit the cop's flashlight next to his head, and then he took off. He got away.
Why did he rip his mask off?
I don't know.
And so shrieked.
The thing is, if you look him up, I know, and shrieked. But there are a billion eyewitness descriptions of this guy. He was constantly getting spotted. by people.
And don't you insert the words, when you see shriek, don't you insert the words
like a girl? I almost said it, and I was like, nope, I'll be adding the words in. Or there's some movie where the guy like freaks out and he puts his arms up and he goes, and then he falls over. It just made me think of that. I wish I remembered what movie that was. So beginning in 1976, the ransacker moved to the Sacramento area. Now, bear in mind, I'm saying this and I'm putting it in order because it seemed like the easier way to do it. But
yes.
these different crime areas were not connected until like the 2000s.
Right.
Sacramento, the crimes escalate to rape. So suddenly these break-ins, ransackings stop. And then all of a sudden we're having rapes, and we're talking 50. We're talking, at first, I looked at the dates of them, and at first it's every month. And then there were some months where there's 3 or 4.
Oh.
And then it would go back to every month. And then there are some 3-month spans where nothing happened.
Huh.
He would break into single floor homes. See, this is why I always like to have a 2-floor home with my bedroom upstairs.
I'm with you.
Of women he knew would be alone. They weren't necessarily single, but what they learned over time, he was very savvy about watching people ahead of time, getting down their routine. So he'd wait until the husband left for work.
Okay.
And if he knew that the wife still slept,
then
he'd break in. He would phone the victim sometimes for months ahead, because what he'd do is he'd see who picked up. And he'd ask for a man's name or say wrong number, or he'd just breathe, or he'd hang up. But that's also part of how we got their schedules. Okay, she's home now. Okay, nobody's answering the phone. She's in bed now. You know, stuff like that.
Which would work now with cell phones.
Right. Now. And sometimes he would threaten them. There were people who got calls saying, there's one that you can actually listen to online, and I'll say later what that link is if people want to go listen to it. But it's creepy. He just sits there and breathes, and he's like, gonna kill you.
Ew.
Bitch. And it's just, it's creepy, so you can listen to it. So it was this whole range of things he would do. He often chose homes that were either near a school, an open space, a trail, a creek, a drainage ditch, somewhere where he could get away easily. It's widely believed he broke into some of the homes ahead of time. He would go in, he would unload guns, because people found their guns had been unloaded afterwards. He would hide ligatures in the home ahead of time, so he could just come in and grab it when he got there. He would unlock windows that they maybe didn't use much, so they didn't check them all the time, so they'd be unlocked for him. So he had an easy egress. He liked to have multiple ways in and out, just in case. I mean, he was very
That's
planned,
a lot of planning,
strategic.
Wow.
Yeah. And when this was all happening, you had the ransacker, but once he became this guy, right, people started changing their locks. So, like, locksmiths were making a killing. People started adopting dogs. People started buying firearms. People were locking everything down because he was getting in through unlocked windows and stuff like that, which was common at the time. We're talking the 70s.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot going on there. But 2 of his victims had actually prepared for him and were locking windows and had changed their locks. And he still got in.
Oh, Jesus.
His youngest rape victims were 13 years old. There were 2 of them. 6 of his original 10 victims during this spree were teenagers. 13, 15. I think there was a 18-year-old. One of these instances, he actually tied up the mother and raped her teenage daughter, which interested me because this changes later when he started going after couples. He would lock up the children and he would rape the mothers. I don't understand this one, but the mother, actually, he balanced dishes on her. And this is something he did with husbands later on. He would tied her up, put the dishes on, said, if I hear a break dish, you all die.
Oh.
So he'd know, and of course he'd know if she was getting free. To one of his victims, he whispered, you'll be silent forever and I'll be gone in the dark. Which Paul Holes, who I'll talk about later, one of the investigators, surmised he'd likely read in a true crime magazine, possibly about himself. And it ended up being the title of Michelle McNamara's book about him, which is the most well-known and was turned into a documentary and everything. And I'll talk more about that later. But she uses the full saying at the end of his book, to him. So anyway, he always woke up the victims with a flashlight in their face. They would wake up and there would be this bright light shining in their face. They couldn't see anything. They didn't know what was going on. They were groggy, they were out of it. He'd tie up the others in the house or lock them in their rooms. If there was a little kid, like in one case, one woman said her 3-year-old son walked out into the hallway while he was taking her into the living room, which is something he would do sometimes later with couples, but he would take them out into the living room, or he would take them to some other area of the house, and he just told the little boy to go back to his room, or she did.
What,
so,
has anybody done a psychological profile on him?
Not yet. I'm really hoping they do.
I want to read that.
Paul Holes, the investigator, has put out there multiple times to him, I would love to sit down and talk to you. Like, I want to know the whys. The people who you hurt want to know the whys.
Yeah.
Why them? Why, So anyway, I really hope somebody writes the book, interviews him and talks to him. Like, I will write to the man and offer to write a book about him. He assaulted women in front of their children. There was one instance where the husband left for work. Her 3-year-old son had come into bed and they were sleeping together in the bed. He tied up the little 3-year-old and then assaulted the mom directly next to her little boy. So, I mean, he did more damage than just to the people he attacked. He started being called the East Area Rapist at this time. During his time as the East Area Rapist, he moved on to attacking couples. This is what I was talking about before. He'd wake them up with the flashlight. Usually the woman would wake up first. He would have her tie up the husband with laces he'd brought, usually boot or shoelaces that he'd brought. And he'd check the ties most of the time. Because there were several women who then did it loosely, and then he'd retie it. Right. And sometimes he didn't. So there were a couple instances where they think that the man got loose. He'd stack the dishware on the man's back. Tell him if he moved, everyone in the house would be murdered. Or one guy, he said, I'll cut off your ear. I'm sure he ended up having to threaten him more after that. Because it's like, okay, cut off my fucking ear, but you can't do this to my wife.
Yeah.
He'd drag the wife into the living room, leave the man in the bed. Most cases. And then rape her in the living room.
That's weird.
I know it is.
That's
it's like
so
you don't want to be
weird.
seen. Sometimes he'd blindfold the husband. It's like he didn't want the husband to watch, which you'd think, as sick as he is, he'd want them to watch so that they'd get punished. But anyway, he would stay in the house for hours. This is something that the East Area Rapist was very famous for. He would pull food out of their fridge and eat it. He would drink a beer. He'd get them tied up. He'd get them situated. He'd rape her, tie her up, go in, have a snack. Rape her again. Then he'd go through their things. Ransack their things like he'd been done before. He loved to go through people's closets and their drawers. Rape her again. He would assault the woman for hours off and on. Sometimes he'd go quiet and they'd think he was gone and start to like move, and he would jump out and scare them. I mean, he was a right bastard.
What a truly awful being.
Something that was reported by a bunch of them is that when he tied their hands, he would tie the ligatures around their hands so tight that for months they didn't have full feeling back in their hands. They suffered bouts of numbness. Like, he damaged the nerves is how tight he would tie them. Something that was consistent with him as the ransacker, as the East Area Rapist, and later on as the original Night Stalker, he would escape on a bicycle. He would either have the bicycle there, or he would steal a neighbor's bicycle. I mean, everybody has a bicycle in suburbia, right?
It's like in the early 1900s, all murders were axe murders.
Right?
It was right there.
And it's true, though. I mean, he was going for, a lot of the time, middle-class homes. And a lot of those would be families with bicycles.
There are always bikes out in the yard.
Oh, yeah. So he'd bicycle to wherever his car was hidden, abandon the bicycle, and then drive home. His first murder during his East Area Rapist years was of the Maggiores, or the Majoris. It's Maggiores. February 2nd, 1978. And the thing is, they were out walking their dog. It was just a couple out walking their dog. It's suspected that they saw him trying to break into somebody's house or prowling around somebody's house, and they must have seen his face because he chased them down. Neighbors saw them outside fleeing somebody, and then he shot him to death in a neighbor's yard. So they must have seen his face, and he thought they could identify him. And near those bodies, why they thought it was him is because they found a shoelace, like the ones that he typically took. His spree ended in 1979 for this one. And then in Southern California, starting in Santa Barbara County, somebody that they called the Night Stalker, which they changed it to Original Night Stalker after Richard Ramirez, started doing his stuff, and he was then given the Night Stalker moniker. The original Night Stalker operated in Southern California until 1986. 79 to 86. His first victims, a couple, survived, and they're the only victims after this point who were left alive. October 1st, 1979, he broke into their home, tied them up. He left the room muttering, "I'll kill him," right? So they heard him saying, "I'll kill him." He was probably going to get the dishware at that point, because that's what you do. Tie him up and then go get the dishware. So they heard this, so they tried to escape. The woman managed to get to scream, to get that off, and scream, and her neighbor was an FBI agent. I'm like, did you not research that? Or was that part of the fun, doing it next door to an FBI agent? So the FBI agent hears the scream. He runs out of his house. When she screamed, he freaked out, right? Night Stalker freaks out, and he runs for it. So the FBI agent was able to chase him, but he ditched his bicycle that he was riding away from the guy on and took off through the yards. And the thing is, that was said each time, Witnesses always said he was very athletic. He was
I was
fit.
going to say
in
he
shape.
had to have been in good shape.
Absolutely.
To do all this and to hop on a bicycle.
He was strong. He could jump over fences, no problem. He would run through and that's how he'd lose people. He's jumping over these fences, and these people chasing him, well, they can't really do that. So that's something, my sister is a cop, that was one thing that they had to prove they could do in Denver.
Jump over a fence.
To get over fences if they were chasing someone. I just remember that was a big deal.
Wow.
Like getting that, learning and practicing jumping over fences and stuff. So sadly, after this, he killed all his victims. The next case occurred December 30th, 1979. The couple was shot to death. Large paw prints were found at the crime scene, and I seem to recall this was true of other original Night Stalker scenes, so they felt he was bringing a dog with him, his pet, with him to the scenes.
What a twisted, sick...
Absolutely. But the thing is, he killed some of the people's dogs if they had dogs, because, of course, the dog is going to try and defend.
Well, yes.
This couple was probably shot instead of bludgeoned, which you'll see was his MO going forward, because they found the man had partially escaped. So she had tied, he learned this lesson, right?
Yeah.
That she had tied it loose enough, he hadn't checked it, the man had gotten loose and gone for him. And so he got shot, and then the woman got shot. And I don't remember if she ended up then being raped. I think he might have killed her before he got to that point. So,
but you know what? If he did all this research, wouldn't it just be easier to pick a place without a dog?
Yes.
I mean, none of it makes sense. It's so hard to understand. Just none of it makes sense.
Yeah, there was some guy who had a run-in with him at a hardware store, and he said that the guy looked like he was going to kick his dog. The guy had a dog. And a crime occurred at his house later, and he felt that's how the guy identified him. And he had actually written down the plate because the guy was he got so aggressive and violent over whatever this little skirmish was. And the guy with the dog ended up saying, I'm sorry, trying to make it okay. And then this guy took off, but he wrote down his license plate number. It didn't lead to anything. One good thing that came out of these attacks was the passing of California Proposition 69, which authorized DNA collection from all California felons to have in a system. So cases could be
good.
What did they say? It was Virginia is the other state that has such a good collection. It solved a ton of cold cases in California, and of course California being part of that golden triangle or whatever they call it area of serial killers in this era, that's a good thing. But anyway, a brother of one of a August 1980 male victim was one of the people who helped push it through. He actually spent $2 million trying to get this proposition pushed through after his brother was killed, because they could collect some DNA, but nothing was popping.
Right.
Most of the women were raped, not always. The couples were usually bludgeoned with items grabbed from the property. So he'd bring his ligatures. He wasn't bringing what he was ultimately killing them with, except for he did have his gun or a knife or something like that, but that's not how he wanted to kill him. He wanted to beat him to death. One couple was killed with a log. One couple was killed with a gardening tool, and then there was an instance with a wrench, which I talk about more later. With these crimes, he took the bindings with him after killing the victims. So they were no longer bound when they got there, but they could see
the ligature.
The marks. Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. So he got smarter about that, and maybe it's because they had started collecting DNA or something like that, and so he started taking them. They found rope fibers from a few, and they found paint chips at a few, so they thought he was maybe working construction during this time in the 80s, or did something as a painter or something like that. His second to last crime in this spree was committed July 27th, 1981. His final rape and murder would be in May 1986. Where he bludgeoned the 18-year-old to death after raping her. This was not a couple. This was a teenage girl. Her stepdad and her mom were in Mexico on a trip. She was staying back by herself. It was May, so I assume she was maybe still in school or something like that, or she just didn't want to go. Who knows? She's 18. The murder weapon is believed to be the stepfather's wrench.
Oh.
They didn't suspect him because, of course, it was confirmed. He was out. He was never the perpetrator. But this guy knew that they weren't there and attacked this 18-year-old. In addition to the phone calls to victims that I mentioned before, the Golden State Killer, which, of course, what he was named during this, I think I say later, it's in 2016 or something like that, when he actually got that moniker officially to cover all of these things when they were connected. Yeah, in the 2000s. Also called Wrote to the Police and Press, taunting them. In December 1977, he sent a poem to the Sacramento Bee called Excitement's Crave. It's not a good poem. I thought about reading it on here, but I figured this is already long enough, so I didn't. He also, in 1978, is believed to have called a counseling service asking for help, saying, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I need help. I need you to help me stop. But at the end, he said, I think you're tracing this call, and he hung up. He called past victims to taunt them all the way through 2001.
What?
Yep. In 1982, one of his past victims received a phone call at the restaurant where she worked. He told her he was coming for her again. It's believed that he must have just happened to eat at the restaurant and seen his past victim, and so he called the restaurant to talk to her.
How much would that wreck your day?
It's awful.
Your life.
Most of these, these women... I wanted to read through some of the victim impact statements and stuff, but again, just way too long because this is too dense a subject.
It's huge.
But I do have the link, and it will be in the resources if people want to read some of the impact statements and about the individuals.
But you go through something like that,
and then he torments you because you already don't feel safe because he's not caught.
And he comes back and just kicks you in the hypothetical nards.
Yep.
Jesus.
It's terrible. In 1991, he called a victim who spoke to him for several minutes. And in the background, she heard a woman's voice and children's voices. It was later confirmed he was married and had kids at this point. So he called from his home. Yep. In the final reported phone call made April 6, 2001, he said to her, "Remember when we played?" That's what he said. And I was just like, you douche canoe. I don't know. You hear one of his phone calls, which was recorded. It's on the crime scene database, which I'll have in the resources on our Facebook page if you want to hear it. So it's chilling, like I said before. It was Michelle McNamara who coined the term Golden State Killer to describe him. She had become obsessed with him. She was a blogger, journalist, citizen detective, and aspiring screenwriter. Her husband's actually Patton Oswalt.
I love him.
Yeah. She brought much needed attention back to his case. So it was her really getting into this.
Is this is this Patton Oswalt's new wife, or is this the wife that passed away?
This is the wife that passed away.
Oh, that was tragic.
She gave him the new name in 2016. She ended up dying of an accidental drug overdose just months before he was caught. She never got to know his name. She never got to see him caught, which
that's so wrong.
I hate. But her husband has continued. He's been on podcasts talking about this stuff for her and putting her book out there because she wrote the book, and I don't even remember if she got to see it published or not. She, during all this research and all this stuff, during her obsession, she started using a lot of drugs. Some of them legitimately got, some of them not legitimately, and this is how she died of an accidental overdose in her sleep. The police really liked her, though. She'd proven herself trustworthy. They could see that she was serious about this. She was finding good things, so they actually gave her access to files on these things to put together. And her book ended up being titled I'll Be Gone in the Dark. So, we're going to get to how he was caught now. This is interesting. His DNA had been collected in several cases in Contra Costa County in California. It didn't match anyone with DNA in the system. That is not how he was found. But investigators continued hunting. They considered sending it out. Paul Holes, he was a chief of forensics for Contra Costa County DA's office, and when he started investigating this, he was a deputy for Contra Costa County Sheriff's Department. Say that. Contra Costa County 3 times fast. He happened across the East Area Rapist files, and he started looking into it on his own. It was a cold case at the time, and he became determined that he was going to figure this out. And I think it was him who put together that it was with DNA that they put together the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same person. And it was MO and stuff like that ended up tying him to the Visalia ransacker case. He was only briefly killed, the Diamond Knot Killer, once because he used a rare diamond knot on the ligatures on a couple. And then they realized it was this other guy, and then he took on the bigger name. Paul Holes got very determined in this, and while he didn't get to arrest D'Angelo before his retirement, he did know who it was. And he had actually, his last night before he retired, he parked down the street because they were staking out D'Angelo at the time. And when authorities did ultimately get to move in, even though he was retired, they called him. And he was able to go out there.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Because he was instrumental in this, along with an FBI agent, and I didn't write down his name. So, if there were no matches when the DNA was processed, how was he found? That's the fun part. Tell me.
This is an amazing story.
So, a distant relative, some dude had uploaded their DNA to a site called GED Match. So if you send it to 23andMe or Ancestry or whatever, you can then upload it to GED Match and it finds more information for you. Holes had uploaded the perpetrator's DNA to the site just in case, so they get a hit. They match as having the same great-great-great-grandparents.
Good Lord, can you imagine getting that hit? You would have just about peed yourself.
Oh my God, they did. But then they put together all these just these intricate family trees, right? Because they had to go back this many generations. And then they just started narrowing people down. You know, okay, well, this person lived out of the country during this time. Obviously, it wasn't them. This person lived in Pennsylvania during this time. And they just kept going, kept going, kept going. Finally, they get down to one dude.
Wow.
Joseph DeAngelo. So they had to gain further proof. They staked out his home. They got his DNA off of his doorknob and out of a tissue in his garbage. And they were able to go, all right, it's him. The DNA matches. He is the Golden State Killer. When they finally got to do the arrest, the police got into the house. He was very calm about it. And he was like, I've got a roast in the oven. And they said, well, we'll take care of it. And then they took him into custody. At the time, he was living with one of his daughters. By the way, he had 3 daughters. This man who had raped and murdered 3 daughters. Oh. And so he was living with one of his daughters and a granddaughter. He was 72 years old.
Shit.
After his arrest, various details have come to light. DeAngelo was born in New York, the son of an Army officer. He got his GED in California, joined the Navy, fought in Vietnam. Upon returning and leaving the Navy, he got a degree in criminal justice, later joining the police force. During his ransacker days, he was on the police force.
Wow.
Yep.
Did not know that.
And the thing is, they had done, when they did the profiles of him, they kept saying he is either a cop or he knows stuff about it. Because he knew how, he wore gloves from the very beginning. He knew not to leave fingerprints. He knew, and then he started removing the ligatures to remove that bit of evidence and stuff like that. He worked as an officer in 2 different cities for 6 years. So he started at one, I think he was there for 3 years, then he went to the other one for 3 years. Then he got busted for shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent spray. Obviously, to me, he was buying something for a crime he was going to perpetrate. And he didn't want to have evidence of buying it, so he was trying to shoplift it. So he got fired. You can't be a cop and shoplift. No. So at that point, he threatened the police chief's life and started stalking him at his home. This guy had anger problems. That's something people said over and over and over again. But he lost interest. They don't know yet what jobs he worked in the 80s. But for the last 3 decades, he worked as a truck mechanic at Save Mart Supermarket's distribution center. That's how this guy finished it all out. He had retired shortly before his arrest.
Wow.
Yeah. It's come out that as a boy, he was abused by his father and witnessed the rape of his 7-year-old sister by 2 airmen while the family was stationed in West Germany. Oh. So instead of being somebody who went, gosh, these men did this terrible thing to my sister, I'm going to protect women from here on out, he said, well, women are whores. And then he started doing terrible things to them. He hated women. I mean, this has been established.
But he had a wife and 3 daughters.
3 daughters and a granddaughter. Yep. It's been shown that he tortured and killed animals and committed petty burglaries during his teen years. Uh-huh. And one of the profiles said he will have committed crimes in his teen years and it will have been expunged. That's why we can't find that. Yeah. In 1970, before his crime spree as the Visalia ransacker began, he got engaged. In 1971, she broke it off. Days afterward, he tapped on her bedroom window, then held her at gunpoint and told her to get dressed so they could go to Reno. We're going to get married. She was able to run away and get to her father in the house because it was her father's house. She was 17 or 18, and the father chased DeAngelo away, and he didn't come back.
Wow.
Some lovely investigator once basically implied to her it was his fault he lost it and started doing this to women.
It was her fault?
Yeah, because she broke off the engagement. So you always have a special...
find
I know.
that investigator.
I know. So in 1973, he got married. That's how long he'd been married. He was married while he was doing all this. 1973... This was during Visalia ransacker. They were married during all of his crimes. They had 3 daughters before separating in 1991. She filed for divorce in 2018 after he'd been, caught.
Wait, but they separated when?
1991. It was just one of those things. I guess neither of them wanted to get remarried, so they just didn't bother doing the actual divorce. Okay. The divorce was finalized in 2019. The woman he was engaged to, when questioned, stated he'd never threatened her or tied her up, but that sex with him was exhausting and painful. Neighbors reported he would often have loud, angry outbursts. One set received a threat because they had a dog that kept barking and was pissing him off, and he left them a phone message saying, quote, he'd, quote, deliver a load of death if they didn't get their dog under control. Ultimately, he committed at least 13 murders, 50 rapes, and 120 burglaries during his various crime sprees, not counting his possible crimes as the Cordova cat burglar, which they'll probably know for sure if that was him. At one point after his 2018 arrest, he tried to claim he had a second personality named Jerry who had committed the crimes, even talking to himself when he was alone in the room, knowing that they were filming him. He ended up pleading guilty June 29th, 2020 to 13 counts of first-degree murder in special circumstances, plus 13 counts of kidnapping. As part of his plea bargain, He had to confess to the rapes. So he did confess to the rapes, even though it was past the statute of limitations, which I think as a rape victim, there's a little bit of satisfaction in that he can't be punished legally for it, but he admitted to it. It's something. It's the most they could give him. His burglaries were also past the statute of limitations. August 21st, 2020, he was convicted and received multiple life sentences with no chance of parole. Before sentencing, he sat and listened to days of victim testimonials. He wouldn't meet them in the eyes, wouldn't meet their eyes, but he did have to sit through it. And at the end, he did apologize, which, whatever.
How fucking meaningful
I know,
was that?
but a lot of them don't. He said, I hurt a lot of you. I can see how I hurt you. I apologize. So, again, fuck you. But it's more than some people get. And I have to say, there were so many victims, and there were so many families of the victims who were killed. And there were some, like, one woman's sister read her statement, and she was there. For someone else, her son read the statement. And his is, it's heartbreaking. He gives her so much credit, and it was one of the ones I wanted to read. But, you know, he just talks about how strong she was and how she wanted to make it past this, and that's why they're okay. And he was tied up when she was attacked. Ugh. He was alive. The sister was locked in her room. He was tied to his bedpost so bad that he had numbness. I really do recommend when I put the link up that people read them, because it's horrifying to hear what they went through, but it's also satisfying that they got to have their say to him, and he had to listen to it. He had to sit there and listen to it before he was sentenced.
That is a small bit of satisfaction.
If you're interested in hearing more about the case, especially after his arrest, I very highly recommend the podcast Murder Squad. The Murder Squad. Paul Holes is one of the hosts. And the other host is Billy Jensen, who is also part of the case. He's a journalist.
Oh.
There's several episodes they do where they're talking about the case, how it happened, how they found it. There's a lot more detail than I've given. Obviously, I can't do that in this space of time. But also the recent ones, he's just been going through those final hearings for the sentencing and all that. And so Paul Holes has been attending it. He's been in court. And so he's talked about what he can. There's a lot more about Joseph DeAngelo, his personality, what he was doing. I mean, he was very whiny about not wanting to look at not having somewhere to look because he didn't want to look at the people, like kept telling his attorney to fix it, you know, like, I want to look away, and like they
tough fucking shit, buddy.
So anyway, really interesting, and you're hearing it from the source. You're hearing it from the cold case detective that worked on this, if you listen to that podcast. If you'd like to read more about specific victims, I recommend going to the Oxygen article that I will be posting. So that's the oxygen.com. Just weird sounds from my child who's playing video games. And that's it. I will have the sources posted on Facebook.
Wow. That is, that's way heavier than...
Right? But at least in the end, I mean, he's caught. There's some form of justice served. It doesn't fix everything. It doesn't fix decades of living in fear for these women. I mean, one person, he was like, my mom couldn't sleep at night. She checked the locks over and over all night, every night.
Who could blame her for that?
Right. And he said, when I called her and told her this, it was the first time she slept in 44 years. Jesus. And felt safe.
I can't even imagine.
Right. And then a lot of the women report, I mean, they were hypervigilant. They've been hypervigilant their whole lives after this.
They had to be. They had to be.
Right. Because you've been victimized in your home.
Whew. I'm fanning myself now. I'm like, that was just so... All right. Let's go on to a slightly
less dark
topic, although it is ghosts and murder. But I wanted to do... I lived in Virginia Beach for 4 years in the 80s. So I thought, I'm going to do something about Virginia Beach. I said, there've got to be a lot of ghosts in Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. There are also a lot of sailors in Virginia Beach, but I figured
there's probably some sailor ghosts.
Probably. Didn't find this. And so this led me straight back to Colorado. So I will get to that in a minute. This is the Haunted Hotel on the Hill. The Cavalier Hotel is located at 4200 Atlantic Avenue in Virginia Beach. It's really a gorgeous, and you can go online. It's still an operating hotel. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's on a little bit, it's not really on, it says it's on a hill. It's on a rise. I'm like,
it's on an East Coast hill.
It's on an East Coast hill. It's at the north end. If you've ever been to Virginia Beach, it's at the north end of the strip of all the hotels and stuff. It really is gorgeous. There's a giant topiary things spelling out Cavalier, and there's this huge rolling lawn. What is it when it's shaped like this? Terrace.
Oh, I was like, I don't know.
I'm using hand gestures, and Shannon's just like, what do I know? It's sort of terraced, and this is obviously lawn people don't walk on. So I'm like, it says something about your money in Virginia Beach if you have that much lawn that close to the ocean.
Oh, okay.
Because it's close to the ocean, and it's not being. It's just. I mean, it's green and it's lovely and it's gorgeous. It's very hoity-toity.
Does it make you just want to go there and just trot around and dance in their grass,
like, roll around on it, and it's not on the ocean, but it's very close to the ocean. It was built in 1927. And I will say, I have never been there. That was not the kind of place I hung out at when I was in Virginia Beach. I'm pretty sure I couldn't have afforded, to look at their lawn. It's interesting to me, there's absolutely nothing on their website about the history of the hotel, which is surprising. Not that I think they would put the ghost stuff on their website, but they've been there since 1927, and there's no bragging about that. Presidents have stayed there. Judy Garland stayed there.
So they don't have like that whole history page. Like if you look at the Stanley, they've got their history and they've got their haunting stuff.
Exactly. Where did I look? Okay, so I first came across this on a website, visitvirginiabeach.com. And of course I will put all the exact links on the website or on the Facebook page. It was undated and unattributed, so I can't tell you who it was. But one of the this is supposed to be the most haunted hotel in Virginia Beach. So there are the sounds of a cat scratching at a door. And I'm like, really? There's a fucking ghost of a cat? It's a cat. It's a cat.
There's live cats scratching at doors here all the time.
And just because you can't see the cat, that's on you. That is not on the cat. So the thing is, we talk about all this supernatural stuff, and I'm like, I really want to believe, but I have not yet seen anything that
my problem is when I try and do a supernatural story is they're like, oh, this murder occurred, right? And I'm all, okay, I'm going to go research the murder. And then there was no fucking murder.
Right?
They're lying, and then it ruins the whole thing for me.
Yes.
I know.
Exactly. Okay. One of the things is that there's a World War II soldier roaming the halls. Couldn't find anything more on that.
No Civil War, huh? In West Virginia, no Civil War. In Maryland, all the ghosts were Civil War.
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay.
The hotel wasn't built until 27.
Okay.
Now, the one that really got me, and I'm like, this piece I would want to investigate. There's the piano that plays in the empty ballroom. So I'm like, okay, that piece that piece caught me, but there's no explanation
that happens at the
for that.
Stanley, but they actually say who it is.
So, like the Stanley, it used to close in the winter months.
Okay.
Because it used to be, now I think Virginia Beach is pretty much a year-round destination, but it used to be just in the summer months or in the warmer months, late spring into
I think
the fall.
that's people just tended to do, like, summer, we're going to go somewhere for the whole summer.
Yes, we're going to go spend a month in,
yeah,
in Virginia Beach.
In the Adirondacks in Virginia Beach.
Yes.
And, yeah.
The front desk or whoever was on the staff would get calls from the 6th floor, and there was nobody staying there. They've even sent security guards up, and there's nobody there. And the other interesting thing is that they would hear, whoever answered the phone would hear jazz music playing in the background. And I'm just like, okay. So there are unexplained cold spots. And to me, that is the generic, everybody says, there's an unexplained cold spot.
Gosh, this building was built in 1927.
What a shocker that there might be a cold spot. And also, the other one that got me, windows that were opened. That you would wake up in the middle of the night and the window would be open. And I'm like, that's somebody who can't agree with whoever their spouse
their
or their
husband is opening the window,
boyfriend or whatever. Exactly. That's what I'm envisioning. I'm like, no, I got that. I'm like,
she's all, the window opened in the middle of the night. And he's like, wasn't me.
Right? Only in our house, it would be the opposite.
I know, it's the opposite.
I'm like, I would like the window open, and Joe's like, there's an icicle growing off my nose.
Please.
Please, there's a pile of snow on the floor. Could we please close the window? Well, okay, but I'm going to keep it open a crack. Oh, God. This is the opposite of when we got married. So anyway, enough about that. There's also an older bellman on the stairs between the 5th and 6th floor, and he will warn people, don't go up there. There are ghosts up there. But apparently the bellman saying that is a ghost.
Love it.
Because no bellboys matching his description have been hired for decades. And I am sorry, but does that not sound like an episode of Scooby-Doo?
Yeah.
I mean, it just does.
I would have been caught if it wasn't for you kids and that dog.
Right? Then I looked at, there was a 13 News Now report by Robert Boyd that aired on, of course, Halloween in 2018. And here's the thing. Here's what makes me think the hotel is doing some serious whitewashing. There's a historian, Chris Bonney, who said in the early years when the hotel had first opened, there was a little girl who brought her... First of all, who the hell travels with a cat? But she brought her cat with her, and both the little girl and the cat were found drowned in the pool.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, we've completely erased the little girl from the story, but we've kept the cat, because that's more socially acceptable. And here's what really bugged me about this. So both the cat and the girl were found drowned in the swimming pool, which I find odd for many reasons, one of which being cats can swim.
Right, they just don't like being in the pool.
Right, most cats don't like water, but
Side note, I had a cat that would play in the kiddie pool with my son and would jump in the bath with me, Malachi.
So now there's one of the bars in the hotel has a drink called the Lost Cat.
Maybe the cat tried to save her and she grabbed it because you know how drowning people do, and they drown together.
And of course, you can't follow up at, was she scratched? Because if you grabbed a cat and tried to drown it, it would...
Pretty sure it'd be like, oh, fuck no, lady.
Yes.
No. The lazy cat? What was it called, the drink?
The Lost Cat.
The Lost Cat.
And now there was a room, it used to be called the Pocahontas Room. Mm. It is now called, I have no fucking idea why. It's now the Becker Restaurant, and apparently there is a ghost girl who walks through with her dog.
Her dog?
Her ghost dog.
Well, that's
so
dumb.
Maybe the ghost dog and girl chased the girl and her cat. I don't know. I am now just making shit up. In 1929, so here's where we start coming back around to Colorado. In 1929, Adolf Coors, yes, the beer guy from Golden, Colorado. According to this article, he was having breakfast in the Pocahontas Room with his wife and daughter. He left the table and went up to room 606 alone, and then ended up on the sidewalk, out through the window of the room onto the sidewalk below, dead.
Oh, okay.
Here's the thing. I could not find, and that may be due to my Google skills, or lack thereof, I could not find any Virginia articles from 1929 about his death.
Really?
Nothing. I can find tons of Colorado stuff.
Is it thought to be an accident or a murder?
It depends who you ask.
Huh.
There are people who think it was a suicide, people who think it was an accident, and people who think it was a murder. And the only witness was his wife. Some accounts have her down in the Pocahontas Room. Some say she was in the room with him, and she said he fell. And there was no investigation. The coroner just went, he did. And
there was a long time. They just didn't think women killed people.
Well, yeah, but there was no investigation. It was just like, yep, he's dead. Yeah. Let's see you tomorrow.
There he goes.
I did think it was interesting that at one point in 2010, and this is an article from the Virginia Pilot, which is the newspaper back there, from March 8th of 2010, they hosted a paranormal conference. Mm-hmm. And there's a local history expert who wrote a book called Haunted Virginia Beach, and he's done a ton of stuff, and he does haunted tours. His name is Al Tuning. He's interviewed past hotel employees, because right now when you go to the hotel, they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. But the old employees gave him all the creepy details. The story I really liked, though, the one that I was like, ooh, that really got me going. So he's doing this talk about the haunted hotel, and he holds up a picture of Adolf Coors. Mm-hmm. And this woman reacted, perhaps she shrieked. And everybody's kind of looking at her. She had been at a family wedding at the hotel in the 70s.
Yeah.
And when they got the pictures developed, because remember, it wasn't cell phones back then and digital cameras. You had to get your pictures developed.
And 3/4 of them were no good.
Yes, at least. But when their pictures came back, there was an older man in the background of a lot of the pictures, and they didn't know who he was. So when she saw this picture, she's like, that is the man that's in my family photos from this wedding in the 1970s.
And when had he died?
1929.
Okay.
And he was 80.
Okay.
So, old man is a fitting description. I went to Wikipedia just to get the basics. If you want the basics of Adolf Coors and the beer company and all that, that's a good jumping off point. Because I was just kind of like, how the hell did I start researching a friggin' ghost in Virginia Beach and now I'm back in Colorado? So he was born in 1847. He entered the U.S., I don't know if you knew this, illegally. He stowed away on a ship. Yeah. There's a whole lot I'm not going to go through about his history, but he founded the Adolf Coors Company in Golden, Colorado in 1873. So what's hilarious to me is I have these two sources. There's something called yourdictionary.com, and I looked at a biography on yourdictionary.com. It just popped up when I was searching Adolf Coors. It's undated and it's unattributed. It is excruciatingly rah, rah, rah.
Raw Coors, raw?
Yes. Oh my God. Adolf Coors was like the second coming of Christ, according to this article. He was but the one piece I did get, the one piece of factoid I got out of that article was how they survived Prohibition. And they diversified into cement, porcelain, and malted milk.
Oh.
And because it's the same,
Okay.
It said it's a similar process to malting barley. Yeah. I do not know if that is true because milk is a liquid, not a grain. So I don't know. But it talked about what a wonderful human being he was, how warm and generous, how he's playing touch football with his kids.
His grandson got.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And how, he was so generous to everybody who was local. There is a book I came across. It's called Citizen Coors, a grand family saga of business, politics, and beer, which was written by, where is his name? Dan Baum. So I'm still researching. I'm still trying to make the Virginia Beach connection. So the Coastal Virginia magazine in 2015 ran this story called Strange Brew by Rich Grissett, which is just such yellow journalism. It's just, I'm like, who would publish this? It was so outlandishly. So this Rich Grissett contends that Coors threw himself out the window. And not only that, he purported to know what Coors was thinking when he threw himself out the window.
His wife didn't even know.
This guy did.
Yeah.
And he's like, he threw himself out the window because he was looking at the Atlantic Ocean that he had crossed so many years before. And he was thinking about all the hardships of Prohibition. And I'm like, but he did fine. He did okay.
Like, I wonder if that whole malting thing, that's how malts became a big deal, like a malted milkshake.
And seltzer, too.
Yeah.
He had seltzer in there at one point. So this, yes, he had a lot of unproven statements about what Coors was thinking and why he did what he did. And it's very colorful and very overblown. But he has a quote from the guy who wrote Citizen Coors, who said about Adolf Coors, he was just a cold, taciturn, deeply unpleasant, deeply unhappy guy, and he passed that down. So the guy, I did not have time to read the entire book Citizen Coors, and I don't really want to know that much about the beer industry or about Adolf Coors because he had a lot of other ideas that I already know I don't agree with. He did not believe in hiring women and minorities, and I'm just going to drop it and go on. But he talked about what an unhappy family they were. But this guy, Dan Baum, has a very good reputation. Mm-hmm. He's written several nonfiction books. He's done some with his wife. And he seems to have actually done his research.
Good.
So it's just funny to me that there were these two absolute polar opposite pictures of Coors. And they talked about, and he talks about how...
Well, if he throws money at you, you're going to say, like he probably threw money into the community.
Yeah.
Right? And so, of course, he was their benevolent benefactor and a wonderful man.
And if you lived in Golden, you said nice things about him.
Like, watch Batman. Like the original Batman with Michael Keaton. I know, but he's like putting money into the thing, but he doesn't really want to talk to people. He doesn't want to do the parties. He's not terribly outgoing, right?
Yes.
Like, but they still are like, Bruce Wayne,
we love him.
Yeah.
So I kept looking for articles from 1929 when Coors Sr. died, but there's nothing, absolutely nothing saying for sure that anybody has any idea.
So the hotel had enough money that they could keep it out of the papers.
Yeah.
And not give themselves a bad name.
I did a little, just because I'm that way. I went just a little bit further because, Colorado.
Yeah.
Here's what I didn't know. What I don't think a lot of people knew or know now. In 1933, in the Washington Evening Star, there was an article, Kidnap Plot Jails Former Dry Agent. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean in English? Agent. Robert Lane, a former Denver Prohibition Enforcement officer, had planned to abduct Coors Jr., which was Coors the second, for a $50,000 ransom. But he was caught, and his partners were caught, and they were arrested. So it just seems very ironic and sad that in 1960, that's such a scary precursor to February 9th, 1960, Coors III was on his way to work and was killed in a failed kidnapping attempt. And Joseph Corbett Jr. was arrested and convicted on mostly circumstantial evidence, and he maintained his innocence until he died by suicide in 2009 at the age of 80.
Fun fact, I almost did that for my Colorado episode, and so I did a ton of research on that. I'm not going to say it now.
Okay. Do you have anything that would add to any of...
No, I might actually do it in a future.
I'm like, all these people who... I'm like, well, just because somebody's rich doesn't give you the right to target them.
Limber, baby.
Yeah, I know. It was compared to that.
Okay,
when Coors III, the third, was killed, it was compared to the Lindbergh baby. So yes, my big... And what's funny is, so the story that I was trying to set in Virginia Beach led me back to Colorado, and I was living in Virginia Beach when I met Joe, and that's how I wound up in Colorado.
Yeah.
But I do not drink Coors beer.
Yeah, not many people in Colorado drink Coors beer.
It does not suit my taste.
No. But we're the home of microbreweries and stuff. I mean, it's spread, but Colorado was kind of one of the originals in that, especially with the snobbery of it.
Oh, God, yes.
We don't drink Budweiser and Coors here in Colorado.
Was that one of the Burt Reynolds movies about Coors?
Yes, because it wasn't...
You couldn't sell it, you couldn't get
past
it
the Mississippi.
east of the Mississippi.
Yeah, there was a reason, because it couldn't be preserved. It wasn't...
That could be.
And so they couldn't take it past there, and so he's running Coors. It's Smokey and the Bandit. Yeah.
Let's talk about Burt Reynolds.
I will always talk about Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
I read one of his, I think he has multiple, but I read one of his autobiographies, and I loaned that to you, and I liked him as a person, like, after reading his.
Yes, I like the way he talked about the very many women he was involved with. He talked about them in a very classy way.
He did.
It was there was nothing salacious about it at all.
No, he was straightforward, but he was discreet and he was respectful.
And he seemed to really have loved all these women he was involved with.
He really, really loved Sally Field.
Yes.
She did not really, really love him.
Well,
I mean, that's fair. I'm just saying.
Yes.
And he was respectful about that even. He could have been like, what was wrong with her? What did I not have that somebody else had?
Well, I forgot he had that long relationship with Dinah Shore.
I did too.
Considerably older than he was.
I always remember Lonnie Anderson, but I also didn't know who Dinah Shore was.
Oh, well, yes.
Not my generation.
You were a youngin'.
Yeah. But Lonnie Anderson I knew from WKRP Ford.
Yep.
And I know he went through TMJ struggles and stuff like that. And since I have a big issue with TMJ and my jaw actually coming loose on the right side and popping out when I'm eating, then it meant something to me because it's kind of how I could swear that was part of why he got hooked on painkillers. Oh,
that could be. I was telling somebody, recently this came up. We were talking about stuntmen, and I was talking about Deliverance. No, actually, that's what it was. We were talking about Deliverance, and I was saying how, wasn't it when they went over the falls, the director didn't tell him?
I don't remember the story, but he was a stuntman. Burt Reynolds was a stuntman, and so then he often did his own stunts going forward.
Yes.
But yeah, he got super broken in that, didn't he?
A lot of them did. Yeah. Apparently they thought they were going to cut before they got to the going over the falls, and they just kept filming.
Yeah.
And
that whole story is riddled with, there could probably be a really good book about all the issues with that. I mean, Ned Beatty has a lot of things to say about
I
that
bet he does.
movie. And I think he felt he was being bullied and stuff like that. I don't remember it well enough to actually say it without it just being gossip. But yeah, he said some pretty negative things about that.
So this has been
Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem. If you have a story that you want to tell, that you want us to read on here or to look into further, it can be pretty much anything if you think it's going to catch our interest.
Yeah, anything weird, odd, bizarre,
creepy,
funny.
Yeah, that too. I mean, we're all about funny. We'll read that too.
And food.
Then you can send it.
Restaurants. We'll do that next time.
Yeah. We talked about a little in New Orleans, but send that to mysteriesmonstersmayhem@gmail.com. You can find our website at www.mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com. And we're available on various podcasting sites, but you can also get it right from our website.
And we're on Facebook, Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Give us a follow, a like on Spotify, all the other places. It helps. It'll get our names out there and get people listening. So we appreciate you.
Yes, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Wahahaha.